you need to tell yourself you deserve this, and you need to have evidence of the value that you bring. And I did not talk to anybody, but one day I got a little tap on my shoulder, and my boss wanted to talk in a private room, and he said, well, the board of directors has decided to give you $100,000 and a 20% bonus. And I went, well, thank you. I was making $80,000 before that, so that's a jump, and I always get my bonus, so that's a 50% jump for me.
Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the Raise Up podcast. I'm so grateful to be back with you, and I swear I can't stop thanking you. I don't know if you're bored of hearing me say it, but I'm going to thank you again because I'm so grateful to each and every one of you that downloads the podcast, that streams the podcast, whatever you do with the podcast. I love that right now you are cooking, you are driving, you are working out, you are walking your dog, all those places, and you are finding a way to listen and a way to invest in yourself. I am so excited to introduce you to my guest, Corliss McGinty. She has 20 years of HR experience in recruiting, benefits and compensation, training and development, payroll, assessments, and all that HR generalist stuff. But she says she loves it, and she loves what she's doing now, which is consulting with clients around talent management strategies, executive and life coaching, culture building, leadership development, training managers, to be awesome leaders. The one thing all her clients have in common is that they get it about valuing people and maximizing their people investment. So Corliss, thank you so much. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
I'm really excited that you're on here. I know whenever we had first met, I was just enthralled with you and your energy, and just, you're so cool too. Like, you're a wealth of knowledge, and you're just so cool and have great stories. So I know that the audience is just going to love hearing from you. I saw on your website that you described yourself head for business, heart for people. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think it's, important for every leader to have this combination. It's great for people to be really good in business, but the heart of your business are your people. And, if the people are treated right and fairly, then the business part's going to take care of itself too. So we need to have that balance. Absolutely.
So I know you've done a lot of like talent development and performance. Is that usually where you're at? Is you're working with the people, like middle management, or where do you usually go?
Sometimes it's VPs of the companies, and we go to another country to have a little retreat. But most of the time it's middle managers to upper management. And, one thing I discovered about myself about 15 years ago when I decided to get certified as a life coach, I love transformation. I love it when, I know where somebody is, and it's important to know where you are really, and then help them get to where they want to go. Because there's nothing more satisfying than helping somebody get what they want. So I'm living my dream right now. I'm just so lucky that I get to work with professional people that want to grow, because that's my niche. I'm a reading maniac in that field. I can't get enough. I'll talk about books all the time too, because they're a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, what are you currently reading right now?
Well, right now I'm reading a fiction. Because I've read,
excellent.
Yeah, during this COVID-19 scenario we have here, I'm not a big one to watch TV all day, and luckily I have a yard where I can garden, and I have a dog where I walk my dog and see my neighbors. But I found this homebound thing that we've got going hard for extroverts. We need people. So that's where I am now, just staying inside, but staying safe.
That's good. That's good. Speaking of COVID, it's kind of a rough time to be talking about getting a raise right now. What would you tell your nephew or niece if they say, hey, I have a performance review in a few months. What should I do if I really want to try and get a raise?
Oh, well, I would say this is the perfect time to do that. This is the perfect time to get just to know, where are you now? What are the perceptions that other people have of you? For instance, it'd be a great time to do a 360 feedback, multi-rater assessment, just to get a lot of information. And then you've got the time now to think about, well, what value do I really bring to an organization? And think about the past year. What are some of your accomplishments and that sort of thing? Because bottom line, raises are based on the value you add to a company. And it's your responsibility to make sure people know that value. Because I think sometimes we think, well, our boss should know, he knows what I do every day.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, they're busy. They don't know. And some of us, especially women, have been taught to not toot our own horn. Don't brag about what you've done. But certainly there are ways of letting people know your accomplishments without bragging. I was thinking about that last night. One of my dreams was going to my boss and talking about how would I approach getting a raise myself. And it would you kind of, without bragging, you can talk about a project you just finished and just say, this is what I learned from that. And this is what we got done, and we made our numbers. I'm so happy. That's it. Not that I'm the best, or, you could brag about your team if you do have a team that you manage, but just to let them know what you've learned and you've accomplished that. There's nothing brag about it. It's just fact.
I like that. I've never heard that before. So you're kind of keeping a general tally almost, but you're using like inadvertent language a little bit whenever you're talking about
it. Well, I'm kind of different anyway.
No, I like that. It's definitely a different approach. Is that kind of how you coach people to, let their managers and their bosses know of the value that they're bringing to the company?
Oh, yeah. And how to do it, especially if you're an introvert and shy about it. I try to focus on the soft skills and communication and things like emotional intelligence and conflict. And, one of the things you have to realize that some things are coming into the workplace that weren't there before that you might have, like empathy. We talk about, how do you build trust and that sort of thing. And it's, besides being dependable, people need to know that they have emotional safety around you, that, you're on their side. They can say what they need to say. And the whole company needs to know that speaking up about things is not a bad thing. I know in real life, if somebody speaks up, they get fired, but that's not in all corporate worlds. That's definitely in the government right now. Right. So being empathetic is a trait that many, many women have. And a lot of times they're the ones that are asking for the raises just to be equitable at work. It's only fair.
Yeah, that's true. How do you think that people can build that trust at work? You said emotional safety. Is that a culture thing, or do you think, that there are other ways that they can build that trust if they're feeling undervalued or underpaid?
Well, the trust thing, that was a Google thing that they did. They did a survey of, what makes really good teams here. And it was that emotional safety thing where people can speak up. One of the courses I love to do is called Crucial Conversations. And, one thing I realized a long time ago when I read that book like 10 years ago and immediately got certified in it so I could teach it to other people, because I realized myself, I am reluctant to have conflict with anybody because nobody taught me how. The messages I got were, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Or children should be seen but not heard. So nobody taught us how to speak up. And if you know the methodology and what you need to think about before you have a conversation, during the conversation, what if somebody gets defensive? What do you do? These are skills that can be learned. Then you can speak up and maybe say what other people in the room aren't saying too. That builds trust, and that makes people know that you've got courage. You know, it all kind of goes together. But speaking up is very important. And I think in trust, being dependable. If you say you're going to do something, then do it. If you're going to miss a deadline for any reason, it's important to tell the person who's in charge of that project, this is why it's going to be late. Because people make assumptions. You know, they might think it's your leadership, and it may not be that at all. We're so interrelated with other departments, it might be you're not getting the information you need to do the project. So just being dependable, and just, you know, if you're on a team, people need to know you've got their back, that you're going to be there for them. And sometimes being there for somebody is telling them things that they may not know about themselves. Because I saw this little grid one time, and I like those six box grids. You've got the top two, or this is a 4-box one. You know what you know, and you know what you don't know. Then on the second one, you don't know what you know. And that's sometimes when we do stuff and we're like, wow, I didn't know I could do that. But then there's you don't know what you don't know. And that's valuable information. I mean, that's what's so good about a 360 feedback is it's very interesting to see people's perceptions of you. Because you think you're a certain way, and sometimes it doesn't come across that way. So, you know, you don't know what you don't know. So if you're trustworthy and give people some constructive feedback and they know you've got their back, that just strengthens that trust bond. It really helps.
Mm-hmm. So you said that you tell them things that they don't know about themselves. So is that just in the 360 feedback, or is that something that people are doing or learn to navigate those types of conversations in the workplace?
Oh, they need to learn how to do it. I mean, the thing about a 360 feedback is it's anonymous. Except if you have a category called boss or manager, you'll know it's from that person. And people like it that way, so nothing can be pointing to them and they feel like they can speak the truth. But people also need to learn how to do that face to face. And it's tough at first. It's really tough because you've got to control your emotions. And if you're like me, I get in a situation and it's like fight or flight. I want to get out of here. I don't want to have this conversation. But that's just, it's called an amygdala hijacking, where all of a sudden your emotions have taken hold of you and you're scared and you just don't want to do anything. You want to contract or get out. But you learn how to get over it. You keep focusing on what do you really want, and you start with your heart, and you start with the facts instead of what you think about the facts. And that will reduce some defensiveness, in other people. So it's just another people skill, a soft skill that people are finally realizing it's a soft skill is as important as a hard skill. And I would beg to say that people who leave jobs or get fired, a lot of that's because of how they do stuff, not the things they know and, the technical things, that sort of thing, but it's kind of how they do the work. You have to fit into culture.
Right. Do you see the same thing for people that are moving up or getting raises? It's more in how they do the work, or do you think it's how they carry themselves, or?
Yeah. Now, I'm not trying to be just talking about women here, but I read a great book that's about how women rise. It's one of Marshall Goldsmith's books. He did it with Sally Helgeson. And they talk about 12 habits that might be holding you back from your next raise, promotion, or job. And I went, I love that book because they talk about things that women do naturally. Like I just said, empathy was important. Well, sometimes it's seen as you're being too soft, or women like to collaborate with people. So sometimes in a meeting, they'll ask people, what do you think? What do you think? And it can be perceived as you don't know what your answer is. You're asking other people for it. And that's not it at all. It's just you want to include people. Maybe you know the truth that when people are included in a decision, they're more likely to buy into it whether it was their suggestion or not. It's just how people are.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a ton of things. We say I'm sorry a lot, and we've got to take hold of how we come off to people, and also notice what kind of things do people move up in a company for, your company. Because I guess all companies are kind of different. In some, it's just the hard work, but in others, they really value how you can pull a team together and get the extraordinary done. So that's one book that opened my eyes, and I thought everybody looking to move up needs to read that book, even if you're a man.
And you said
they're 20.
That was How Women Rise.
Yeah, How Women Rise by Marshall Goldsmith, my favorite coach. I got to coach with him 15 years ago. Oh, he's great. And then Sally,
Nice.
I know I've been lucky. Sally Helgesen, Helgesen. It's a great book. And,
we'll have to check that out. I've never read that.
Yeah, and this is the perfect time when you're not so busy that you can do some assessing of yourself. And you can even do an informal 360 of people, maybe even past bosses or people who really know you well. They may not work with you, or maybe some peers or whatever, but you can do an informal one and just say, I trust your opinion. I value it. Would you give me some feedback? And
what kind of things are you looking for in a self-assessment?
Well, like your communication, because we all think we're doing a great job at it, but we're not. Sometimes people have to fill in the blanks. It's very sporadic, or sometimes we don't keep people in the loop, and people will know something and you should know it too, but you don't. That really hurts feelings. So, there are a lot of things going on that you need to be cognizant of and just be aware of.
Mm-hmm. Is that some of the things that a lot of people, let me try that one more time. A lot of people will say that the self-assessment is kind of first if you're feeling undervalued and looking to move up more or less, or get a pay raise. Do you feel like that is the first thing that you should do? Or do you think that you need the feedback before you actually self-assess?
Well, for me, I'd rather have the feedback. I tend to focus on what's bad about me. But it's getting less and less as the years go by. But it's because I know some things that are bad about me. Like, you might think I'm a great communicator, but there might be some behaviors that you do that don't say that. For instance, somebody comes into your office and they want to ask you a question. And you're like, yeah, come on in. You're doing email. And they're talking and you're not even looking up at them. You're not looking them in the eyes. You're typing email going, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you might be like some husband and wives at the breakfast table, like, you're not listening to me. Yes, I can repeat every word you said. And maybe they can, but the perception from you is they're not listening to me, because I'm used to people looking me in the eye when I'm talking to them and somehow acknowledging what I'm saying by nodding or something. So we all do that. We all have things that we're just not aware of how we come off, or just little areas we need to improve. And I also want to stress it's not just about looking for weaknesses that you have. I'm a big believer in StrengthsFinder, where you find out what your strengths are and you leverage them. Because I know from being an entrepreneur, I started my business, this last business, 12 years ago, and I'm not good at everything. I know that. So you hire somebody who is good at it. It's interesting, when Gallup did that StrengthsFinder and they looked at everything, they noticed that people working on their strengths, figuring out how can they leverage it, how can they use more, they're happier at work, they're more engaged at work, they're more likely to stay, and they're a lot more productive. So any effort they put into that strength, like I hope people listening, and I'm guessing they are because they're listening to something they can learn from. I hope you're looking to learn all the time. And to make it really count, put it into something you're already good at. They've done research on people who were slow readers or fast readers, and then they gave them a speed reading course. And guess who did better? The people who didn't read very much, not very good, they did improve. But the people who read good to begin with, and they had a speed reading course, it was like 400% better. Unbelievable when you focused on your strengths. But
right.
our companies and society tells us we need to improve. We need to look at our weaknesses and be stronger. We need to be well-rounded. But do we? I mean, what if we have strengths? What if our strengths can carry us through our career? And they can. They can. But focus, and that's something nobody's thought of. We think about focus on stuff you don't know or you need to improve in, rather than learning more about something that you love. It's interesting.
It is interesting. I never really thought about it that way, but I can see how it would definitely add more value to that person and also to the company as well, because they're, like you had said, more engaged, more passionate, more excited. What if you're not super excited about what you're doing, or you don't feel like it's in your strength zone?
Oh, that's my expertise.
It is excellent.
Well, I am I'm crazy about people doing stuff that they love. And we talk to ourselves all the time, and we can talk ourselves into staying at a job that sucks the soul out of us. But it's like, I've got a mortgage to pay. I've got kids going to college. I mean, we can talk ourselves into doing amazing things. But how can you be miserable for the majority of your life? You think about how much time is spent at work. I mean, even driving there, even when you get home, sometimes you're checking email. A lot of your life is spent with work. So, you've got to think about, is that how I want to spend my life? Because the days are ticking away. And if you're not doing something you love, you may never get to do it. So there's another book I want to mention.
Okay, let's hear it.
That I just finished because I'm so interested in that subject. Comeback Careers. Mika Brzezinski wrote it, and it's about women going back in the workforce after a timeout, or taking a lateral move, or whatever. It's figuring out what you want and being willing to go get it. And I like their strategies. There's some good advice about networking and assessing your values, because they really reinforce it's your value that gets you raises. No, but one time, can I tell you a raise story I have?
Yes, please.
Well, when you told me this was going to be about people getting raises, I'm like, she'll never believe this, but it's the truth. It's the truth. When I was in Austin, Texas, and I wanted to be certified as a life coach, I had a master coach I was working with, and he said one time, well, what do you want? Because really, a lot of times I don't like to think about what I want. I want to help other people. But I was like, I don't know. I want 6 figures. And this was like 20 years ago, and that was a big deal. I want 6 figures. And it's like, okay. So that's all I did was I wrote it down, and then I thought about it a little bit. How did it make me feel to get that raise? And because I was the HR director, I knew the salaries of other directors, and I knew I wasn't in line. So I knew I deserved it. And how can I say this? Once again, it's how you talk to yourself, and you need to tell yourself you deserve this, and you need to have evidence of the value that you bring. And I did not talk to anybody, but one day I got a little tap on my shoulder, and my boss wanted to talk in a private room, and he said, well, the board of directors has decided to give you $100,000 and a 20% bonus. And I went, well, thank you.
What?
I mean, I was making $80,000 before that, so that's a jump, and I always get my bonus, so that's a 50% jump for me. And I'm like, this is strange because I didn't do anything, but I did have it as a goal. I did write it down. I did think about how am I going to feel when I have that. And then I just let it go. I do that with a lot of my
Nice.
goals at the beginning of the year, and I write them on a piece of paper. These are my imperatives I want to do, and here's my strategy to get there. And I put it away. And it's not that I have a sharp memory, because I don't. I think there's something to visualizing things and then having them come true. So that's my
But
weird.
you continued to show up well, right? At work.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Oh yeah.
when I got there, I was like, I'm going to make sure it's worth their dollars. And, I was a good worker trying to make big changes in companies. And it's one reason I started my own business is that company in Austin, Texas was so great, very transparent, everybody's working hard, if it's through the night, whatever it takes to serve our customers. And we had things we did outside of work, and we had things inside work, like a prom, ping pong tournaments. And as the HR person, I had massage and chiropractor and laundry service, all that stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Well, it doesn't cost you anything. You just set it up and provide the space. So, just thinking about stuff like that. So I really think mindset is a component a lot of people don't think about. And you need to think about that. You need to be positive. You need to say, I deserve this, and this is why. And that's why it's important to let other people know what you've done or an obstacle you had to overcome. People can learn from your mistakes too. But that's when you're not bragging. You're just telling the facts. This is what I learned. Oh, I had this obstacle, but we got it done before the schedule and on budget. I'm so happy.
And that all goes back to where you had said to bring in the evidence
of
the value that you bring, right?
Yes, bring the evidence.
You tell people to kind of keep track almost?
Well, yeah,
like keep a log, document what you're doing?
I tell you, because I've been in HR several decades, I don't want to say how long. People can do the math and go, you should be retired, but I'm not. But
you don't need to retire.
I know. Managers will think about the last month when it's time for a yearly review. And they have limited memories. They don't remember, was that in this period that we're evaluating? Yeah. So sometimes when I did something good or I got an email about it, I just stick it in a folder. I have one at home for rainy days or quarantine days, when you can pull out your file and it's all the nice stuff people said about you to cheer you up. But you need to do that. And actually, as an HR mama, I'm not really into the yearly review because that's just not enough. The world's moving too fast. I think there ought to at least be quarterly reviews and hopefully get to a point that you get feedback in real time, right as something happens. I mean, that's what the younger generations want. And I tell you, from my experience in trying to get reviews from managers on time, I think they would like to have another way of doing that because it's a lot of work after a year.
Have you seen that some companies are moving to a different model, that they're moving to the giving feedback and the radical candor and things like that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'm so happy because it just, we have to let go of that. It just doesn't work. And people get real nervous about it, both sides. I mean, the employee and the manager. And then either you live, because I focus on what I'm not good at. When I would leave my review, somebody would say, you need to take a statistics class. And I'm like, gag me with a spoon. I don't want to do that. I'm not.
No, thank you.
I'm just not. Although I did accounting for, a long time, I'm not a left brain person. I'm really right brain and really more creative than that. So I am who I am.
Yeah. And that's awesome. So the performance reviews, do you have any advice for anybody that's kind of, I don't know, hesitant, maybe my introverts, the people that are not a big fan of those types of conversations with their managers?
I would try to make it as informal as possible. I would say go to a coffee shop, and if you're the manager, don't sandwich stuff. You know what sandwiches and say the good stuff, and then hit them with the hard stuff.
I do know
and then
that.
end it with the good stuff. The sandwich, people on
with
to
the
it.
happy stuff.
Yeah, and just say to be transparent about we all have stuff that we're working on, and maybe even share with your employee, this is what I'm working on because I know I'm not so great at it. And then to partner up and say, well, what can I do to remove obstacles for you or help you out or get you resources? What can I do to help you be better? And once again, trust will come in. This person really cares about me, and they're willing to help me out. Because sometimes you might have noticed some people are made manager and they shouldn't be, or they never have been, and they don't know what to do. And more people are not giving managers the basic training they need to manage people. You know,
and then their people are frustrated.
Well, and
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, and it's part of the model too, because when you think about moving up the ladder, what if you're like a software engineer and you just love coding and you're really good at it, and you've done some things for the company that made them a lot of money and made some customers happy and all that? Well, they're like, let's move them up, let's make them a manager. And you can fail miserably because not everybody wants to be a manager. So there's got to be a way in companies that people can move up without managing people. Because some people just don't want to do that. I mean, in my latter years, I don't want to manage people. I just don't. I mean, when I hire people to do stuff, they're independent contractors. And, you know, they come in to do a project and then they're gone. I don't want to manage people anymore because I tend to want to fix them.
You're very helpful. It's one way to put it. Okay, so typically I'll ask the guests if they have any other best stories, like war stories of getting a raise. Do you have any other ones that you can think of? You told us that one, and that was really awesome.
I know. Well, I was just really surprised about that, you know, because it was not what you think. I didn't open my mouth, but I put it out there, you know, the thought was there and it was written down, and I don't know how they got wind of it, but the board of directors did it on their own. So,
no way. Okay, so I misunderstood then. You didn't even tell them that you wanted 6 figures?
No.
Oh my gosh. See, I missed that part
just
somehow.
So surprised. And I told my coach, I said, I got the raise. And he's like, well, congratulations. I'm like, but I didn't even ask for it yet. I was thinking about how can I ask for it, you know, and I was starting to look at what am I contributing to the company? If I weren't here, what would go south fast? Or why do people line up at our company to be hired? They can't wait. I mean, we never had any trouble hiring people. They wanted to work there. And, you know, a lot of stuff like that, you think about your value. And so I was putting that together in my head, but I'm one of those that I always will wait for the right time, you know, because sometimes you say things and it's just not the right time to say them. And I find, especially if I'm got some emotional reaction to something somebody said, it's like, just calm down and think about it for a minute and get back. You know, because you can get hijacked over and over again by your emotions, and you need to use your other side of the brain, your cortex, your thinking part of the brain, to put some facts together. So, you know.
So do you excuse yourself from the situation? What's your recommendation if you feel like you're getting emotional or angry or whatever it is, responsive wise?
Well, if it's a conflict or something, it's fine to say, let's pick this up later today, or, you know, let's cool off a bit and recircle, that sort of thing. But there's some skills you can do before and after or during the conversation. One thing before that, when I talk to my career clients, is do the Wonder Woman thing. Have you ever heard of Wonder Woman stance? And it having your
Yes,
feet
I have
apart
heard.
and
Like, go.
oh,
Uh-huh.
and you go in the bathroom before your interview and you're like, you can do this. You can, and it's just acting as if, you've got all the confidence in the world and, you're just rah-rahing for yourself. It really changes your energy. It really helps you to be more competent and confident when you go in and talk to somebody. And then you got to figure out, what if while I'm talking to them, I start getting like anxious? And you have to figure out what works for you to calm yourself down. And I know for me, it's deep belly breathing. Just slowly get your stomach to move and take in a deep breath and slowly let it out. That will calm me down so much. But it might be something different for somebody else. Everybody.
I know some people will like tap on the side of their hand or remove themselves from the situation.
Some people,
just kind of depends.
Yeah, they have a rubber band, they snap it on their wrist, or some people, because I love to read body language too, some people who are high Ds on the DISC scale, which is extrovert, task-oriented, let's get her done. I can see when they're getting impatient, but they might have their leg crossed and all of a sudden they're wiggling their foot. Or if they're standing up, they're jingling change in their pocket. I mean, they're just, or kind of looking to the side at the clock. You just need to be able to read people to see if you're coming through or if it's time to end right now and pick up later. So all of these things can be learned. It's not like I've got to change my personality. No. Just learn some.
You can just learn those cues, more or less.
Yeah. It's very important to work on your emotional intelligence because that's one thing you can change. You can't change your IQ, but you can definitely change your EQ, and that affects how you are. Basically, emotional intelligence is self-awareness and self-management. That's big because a lot of people cannot manage themselves and they get angry at people and say stuff they shouldn't, or they're not aware at all of how they're coming off. And the other part is the social thing where you're aware socially of what's going on and you manage your relationships. You know how to do that. So as you go up the ladder, these kind of skills are very important. Your network and how you manage people and how you can read people and how you can control and self-regulate your emotions so that you don't do something you'll regret or say something you'll regret. So that's one place people could put some dollars into that training and improve. Or there's a great book out there.
Excellent. I'm going to put all of these in the show notes.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
What's the book?
It's Emotional Intelligence 2.0.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think. Travis Bradberry wrote it. And his company actually does EQ training also. But you get the book and you have a little code and you go on the website and take his assessment. And you can retake it in a year. He's got some resources on his website about, well, how do I improve my social awareness? How can I do that? And he'll have resources or suggestions. And I suggest people just work on a couple of them, the most important ones, and maybe not even necessarily your lowest ones, but the ones that are most important for you at that point in your life and your career. And work on those because it's always going to help pay dividends when you invest with yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So is there anything else that you want to add to our conversation about getting a pay raise?
Just remember, you deserve it. And remember your mindset. Just remember your mindset when you go in. Be confident and know you're worth it. Have your facts and just do it as matter of factly. You can Just say, hey, I want this. And you might be really surprised that they're like, oh, well, I agree. And I'm like, what? Do you really? No.
Excellent.
Right. You don't want to do that and say, oh, I'm glad you see things my way.
Right. Yeah, don't say that. That's hilarious. Awesome. Well, thank you, Corliss, so much for being on the show. Where can people find you? What's your favorite social media or place that you hang out that people can connect with you?
Well, for friends, it's Facebook. Otherwise, it's LinkedIn. And I've got my company, Soft Solutions Consulting, on LinkedIn. And I was on LinkedIn when it started a long time ago. So I've got thousands and thousands of people.
That's amazing.
Isn't it? I mean, and I don't...
You're a LinkedIn OG.
Well, I don't go out and invite people, but if somebody wants to link up with me and they don't look like a terrorist, I'll go, okay. And one time it really helped me because somebody wanted a job and they said, I see you know Bill down in Baton Rouge and I really want that job down there. Can you give him my resume? And I went, well, God, I don't know you and I don't know him, but what the heck? So I asked Bill, I said, in the spirit of networking, would you take this resume to the hiring manager for this job? And he's like, sure, yeah, I can do that. And then she said, I got the job. And I'm like,
no way.
Oh, yeah. That two strangers, I really, in my heart, believe people want to help you. So if you just say, in the spirit of networking, I have a person that's dying for that job and we can help her. Would you be willing to do this? And they're like, yeah, of course, because there's no big effort. And from an HR perspective, having somebody give you a resume is better than, a stack of them off the internet that you have to go through. So anyhow, it matters.
That's amazing.
Relationships matter. Yeah, I know. I've had so many weird things going on in my life, but I can't say I've been bored ever.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure a lot of people will want to connect with you. This has been super valuable. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure our listeners do too. You had so many gold nuggets in there, Corliss. I really appreciate it.
Well, that's just because I'm a reading maniac and I just acquired knowledge. So I'm happy to share that knowledge with anybody, and especially if it helps them move forward and make things happen in their life. That thrills me.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll let you go. And I just want to say thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you for having me. I had a good time.
Thank you. You did? I'm so glad. I had a good time too. That's fantastic.
Great. Well, you stay safe.
Thanks,
all right, Amanda.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Now, if you did find some valuable tips in this podcast today, please take a minute to subscribe to the podcast because it will only get better from here. And be sure to share it and tell all of your friends about it on Facebook and Instagram and all your social media sites. I would truly appreciate the social media love. Thanks again for listening, and I can't wait to connect with you again. Bye for now.